Thank you so much for your kind introduction, Monica. It is really my great honor and pleasure to be here with you today to talk about the work of the IIFRS Foundation. And on behalf of the IIFRS Foundation, I would like to thank the organizers for planning this extremely important and timely event. And also, of course, I would like to thank the participants for your strong interest in the subject. And we do need to have your support in achieving our goal of developing international sustainability disclosure standards. And I would just like to mention that we are really honored by the task given to the foundation, but at the same time humbled by the huge challenge that we have in achieving this goal. And I thank Ms. Shinta Kamdani for referring to some figures from the OECD, and I retired from the OECD 6 months ago. And we were really wondering about the huge challenge ahead of us in mobilizing private capital for the sake of sustainable development. And we need to work on this now, and this is urgent. From here, I would like to use some slides to explain who we are and also what we are doing very briefly. And then Sue Lloyd, our capable vice chair of the ISSB, will explain to you in more detail what those standards are all about, the exposure drafts and our goals. So could you turn to the next slide, please? Thank you. Well, the IIFRS Foundation is an independent and a non-profit organization with a three-tier governance structure. And you can see this here on this chart. Basically, why we take this structure, this is because we want the boards, the International Accounting Standards Board, and then the newly established International Sustainability Standards Board to develop those standards on an independent and inclusive basis, which will be supervised by the IIFRS Foundation trustees, and I'm a member of that trustees group. We will certainly provide the necessary governance, discuss the budget, the staffing of the work, and also provide other proper oversight. And to, of course, link this to the official sector, because of those capital market authorities responsible for supervising and regulating capital markets will need to provide their oversight through this monitoring board. And therefore, we have this three-tier structure. And one footnote to this is that we have an advisory council, which was, of course, up to now, providing advice in terms of the accounting standards that this foundation and the ISB has been developing, which will now also provide advice in the context of the ISSB. Next slide, please. Well, just in very quick words, the current sustainability reporting landscape, certainly there have been very useful and very sophisticated voluntary initiatives, and there have also been many jurisdictional initiatives, some of them leading to mandatory disclosure requirements in some jurisdictions. But the issue was that those were, let's say, different. Also, they were catered for different stakeholders or different audiences. And certainly the diversity of those standards either caused confusion or were very burdensome when preparers were working on their own sustainability reports. Next slide, please. Now on this slide, the issues are mentioned more in terms of the consequences of multiple standards. And well, I don't need to repeat what I mentioned already, that those were indeed costly, incomplete, difficult to benchmark performance, limited global consistency or comparability, diminished confidence, and so on. Well, of course, this is not to say that some of those standards have indeed been useful, and I don't need to probably raise the example of the TCFD and also GRI and integrated reporting and SASB and so on. But the effort that this foundation, the IIFRS Foundation, is to integrate all of those useful elements and accomplishments into one set of high quality, internationally applicable and accepted set of sustainability disclosure standards. Next slide, please. Why we came to this point? This has actually been demand driven. That is, it is not initially the IIFRS Foundation that was fighting to start this work. It was more natural but strong need expressed by market participants, particularly investors, and also well, basically the credibility and the stability that the foundation has been providing through IASB in the accounting standards arena that brought us to this point where we are now asked by stakeholders, by governments to embark on this set of sustainability standards to be developed. And we went through a consultative process, and here is a summary of what we heard. And certainly previous speakers have already referred to the growing and urgent demand by stakeholders to somehow have a set of global standards to improve on consistency, comparability, and of course to prevent greenwashing. Next slide, please. The announcement at COP26 was a landmark announcement. There are three pillars to this. One is what I already mentioned in establishing the International Sustainability Standards Board with a multi-location model. I'll refer to that later. Consolidate Climate Disclosure Standards Board and Value Reporting Foundation, which is really our absolute need to integrate useful and accomplished work by voluntary standard setters up to now. And then publish a general disclosure and climate prototypes as a precursor to ISSB proposals. And you've already seen that those we now have 2 exposure drafts out for public consultation until the 29th of July. And your comments are most welcome and urgent also. Next slide, please. Now, our focus is to develop standards for building a global baseline of sustainability disclosures and a digital taxonomy to enable electronic tagging of disclosures, focus on meeting the information needs of investors, because there are multiple standards that cater to different groups of stakeholders, but we really wanted to focus on investors because that is where we are most competent at the IIFRS Foundation through the ISP in the link to financial reporting, and also as a part of making the sustainability standards a part of the corporate reporting. Now, we want to enable companies to provide comprehensive sustainability information for the global capital markets. And for this to happen, of course, we need the ISSB to be a truly inclusive and global body with the right expertise and the facilities to enable that task. And then we take a building blocks approach because, of course, well, as I mentioned, jurisdictions have already been working on this subject with different requirements, and certainly to the extent that the situation would differ in some cases quite significantly from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. We want the jurisdiction-specific or elements to be either added, or some jurisdictions may choose to aim at a broader group of stakeholders than investors. And we want to enable that by adopting this building block approach. Next slide, please. Well, in a nutshell, this building blocks approach, sorry, is where we start with, of course, the financial reporting arena with an investor focus, and that's what the ISP has been doing, and also other generally accepted accounting principles are certainly relevant there. But on top of that, we want to add the sustainability-related financial disclosures with an investor focus at the ISSB. And this is a part where the reporting is on sustainability-related matters that may reasonably create or erode enterprise value over the short, medium, and long term. And this is certainly an extension, but at the same time, say a value added in terms of the information needs of the investor community, as opposed to the narrow definition of financial reporting. Now, we have outside of this boundary a sustainability reporting space where those reports are catered for the needs of broader multi-stakeholder communities. And this can be added on top of the baseline set standards that the ISSB is developing. And some jurisdictions, as I mentioned, have already started to work on this. And with our collaboration with GRI, we certainly want to make for a, let's say, a good connectivity or consistency in terms of the whole sustainability reporting arena, but with very well-defined different missions. Next slide, please. Well, this is really the initial or inaugural membership of the ISSB, but this is only the first cohort of our expert board members. And I would say very soon we will have more members coming in to constitute a quorum and then a full board. And we want to do this as soon as possible. But at least the quorum of 8 members will be needed by the end of July. Next slide, please. achieving compatibility between the accounting standards and sustainability disclosure standards. I already referred to this a bit, but let's say, viewed from the investors, of course, we need to have, let's say, consistent corporate reporting, and we will ensure this by, let's say, we use the words connectivity and compatibility. In a way, of course, I may have used the word consistency too easily, because what we mean by that, or what we mean by connectivity and compatibility, will need to be more clearly defined. And this work will have to be done by both boards, the IASB and the ISSB, working together. And while the boards will be independent and complementary of each other, they should work together to, with the aim to provide comprehensive information to investors and other providers of capital. And also, we, the trustees, will be overseeing this and providing strategic direction. Next slide, please. So since COP26, I think it's fair to say that we made significant progress. We have appointed the leadership team with the chair of the ISSB, Emmanuel Faber, Vice Chair Sue Lloyd, and Janine Gill as a special advisor. And then we've adopted a multi-location model where in each of the broad regional, the broad regions of the world, we have a base, and we have the chairs based in Frankfurt, the chairs and vice chairs are based in Frankfurt, and then we have a North American base in Montreal. We have an existing office in Tokyo, but the Asia Pacific base will be determined later this year. And we have worked on the consolidation with CDSB and BRF. We also concluded a cooperative MOU with GRI. And now where we have published proposals for the inaugural IFRS Sustainability Disclosure Standards. And now the current focus is, of course, to complete the appointments of the ISSB, complete the multi-location model in terms of staffing, etc. And so Asia Oceania is quite important, and certainly your interest in Indonesia and the region will be most welcome. Also, actually, we need your participation and support for the work. And we will be, or we are appointing advisory groups, preparing the final bit of the consolidation, and the all-important exposure drafts of the standards. We are now in this final phase of consultation until the end of July. But then, of course, there will be deliberation. There will be several board meetings in which there will be in-depth discussions over the comments and what shape the final standards should take, the objective being the end of this year. Now, next slide, please. All this has been supported by the G7, G20. I put here the most recent one only because it is most recent, in which the G7 actually welcomed the inauguration of the ISSB and its progress of work and so on. And we also were very delighted to be welcomed by the G7 in issuing this path to global baseline statement of 18 May and so on. But I should not forget to mention that actually the G20 is all important because, of course, it is a group that has Indonesia as its presidency this year, and we really would like to benefit from collaboration with the G20 presidency, and this can only happen with your strong interest and support. And certainly, I think it is a great opportunity for Indonesia to lead a global initiative that will certainly make a difference for the capital markets into the future. The G20 Rome Leaders Declaration in October last year referred to the IIFRS Foundation work in its communique as well. So next slide, please. I think I should stop here now, but here you can see where you can find us, and for more information, please feel free or do not hesitate to access all those channels. And then I will hand over to Sir Lloyd for a further informed explanation of what we mean by those exposure drafts. Thank you so much for your attention, and all the best.